Hi, here's a review of one of the movies that I really enjoyed last week. It's Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Many have adapted the story of Frankenstein to film. This isn't the first time, but for me, I think this is one of the best interpretations of the classic Mary Shelley novel. This is an epic. This is a Gothic tragedy, and yeah, to me, it's definitely one of the top movies of the year. The movie opens up with the present time of Victor Frankenstein running away from his creation. And he gets on a ship and tells the captain what happened and his story. And he is terrified of what the monster and if he's going to get killed by him. And so you're going into the past and you see his beginnings. And I've read the Mary Shelley novel. I've read Frankenstein, but it was a long time ago. It was even before like high school. I think I read it like at age 8 or 9 or something. And I don't remember a lot about it. All I know is that the monster and his and how he created him. Those major points. But I didn't know the stuff about Victor Frankenstein's upbringing. He did not have a great father. In fact, his father doesn't really, care for him, and yeah, that definitely brings on a lot of angst inside of Victor, and you see it. You see it when he was a child, and when he was studying to be a physician, and his father, giving him questions as to how you would, operate on a body, and fix the organs and everything, and he just as a kid he's just gritting his teeth. He can't stand his father, and the tragic part is he had a great relationship, a loving relationship with his mother, uh, and then she dies, and that creates a big rift, a major rift between him and his dad. And he also has a brother, a little brother, and that little brother, his dad likes more. And so Victor is dealing with a lot of family issues, and when both his parents die, he still carries that with him. And Del Toro is able to really tap into Oscar Isaac for that, and Oscar Isaac, as Victor Frankenstein, is able to do a brilliant performance that's tortured, that's layered, that's multidimensional, and yeah, he definitely has always been the villain of the story, more so than the monster. The monster was never really the villain. It was always Victor Frankenstein and his obsession and his pride that unfortunately becomes his own demise. And yeah, I just Oscar Isaac, he just plays this character really well, and it's just amazing throughout. But at the same time, you feel bad because he's just really this lonely person that really only cares about his work. And if his work doesn't line up with what he wants, he's almost like falls into a depression and is just like horrible to other people around him. And the idea of him reanimate, the whole thing about him like uh, reanimating a corpse and bringing people back to life, is because he lost his mother, and his father, who is a physician, was unable to save her. And so he says to him, when as a kid, he said, "I'll be able to bring people back to life," and he says it directly at him, directly at his face. And that idea, he carries that with him when he's an adult, and he's testing it out, and he's showing the government and the church on if he can do that, and to show them that he can do this. And he brings in like an experiment and is able to like partially revive this like corpse, and everyone in the building is like shocked and horrified, and these are members of politics and of the church, and they just think he's doing the devil's work. And they despise it, and he just says, and they won't give him funding for this. And so he's just like, all right, well, I'm just going to do it myself. And he goes to his tower and builds the contraption to resurrect people with machinery and lightning. And so that's what he's able to do. And this is the time of the Industrial Revolution. This is the beginning of that. We're getting past the Enlightenment era, and now we're getting into the Romanticism, era, which is about individuality and stuff like that. And so he, is just like, he doesn't give a damn about what the government thinks or the church. He's going to do what he's going to do. And so he has a guy that is going to help fund this. Who plays, but who's a baron. He's a wealthy baron, and he's played by Christoph Waltz. And and so he's able to get the funding from him and build the contraption to create, which is to create the monster. Even though his intention is just to create a human being that has died previously, and he gets the bodies actually from men who have served in war, and so that's how he gets it, because they've been shot by a bullet and have died, and so he's able to like work with that. It's not body parts of people being blown apart or anything. It's guys that have served in war, and so he's able to get a body from like the battlefield, and he's gonna try to revive that. And he revives him. He actually does. He's able to. This experiment works. He gets a heartbeat, and you have the actor Jacobelordi playing the monster, and he does a fantastic job playing him. You see it in the eyes. You see like innocence in his eyes, and it's haunting. And Guillermo del Toro has said, a lot of acting is based around the person's eyes and how they're looking at another person or to the screen, and you can see the emotion there. And you definitely see that with Jacob Elordi. The acting with the eyes is very good. And so he has this experiment, but the monster he only refers to him as Victor each time. That's the only thing he says is Victor, Victor, Victor. And that irritates the hell out of Victor Frankenstein. But really, it's just the creature. He just wants a friend. He's just yearning for someone to love him. And again, it's that kind of thing mirrored with Victor Frankenstein. He just wanted to be loved by his father, and he never got that. So does the creature. The creature wants to be loved. He, even when he, gets up from the table, and Victor's like hearing his heartbeat, the creature's kind of like putting him into like putting his hands over him, almost like a hug, because he wants to feel that. Victor just doesn't. He dismisses it, and that psychologically messes up the monster. It makes him rageful and prone to anger and violence, because he's not given any love by his surrogate parent, Victor. And so it's you definitely see the themes of sins of the father and parent to child abuse. You see that, and that's kind of what the story was in the original novelization of Frankenstein, along with the stuff that we all have taken from it, like it's bad to play God and try to create life, that through your own means, through technology. That is definitely another takeaway that you get from this story, that unfortunately nowadays, you don't have Victor Frankensteins in, there are barons, but you have, politicians and CEOs that definitely, are Victor Frankensteins, that have this kind of angst inside them and think they're doing the public good when actually they're actually hurting a lot of people. And so you continue to have this and this angst between them. There's a rift, and there's still a rift between Victor and his brother. He gives him a lot of shit about what father thought of them and everything. And eventually it all comes down into Victor blowing up his own castle, his tower, and leaving the creature to die. Well, the monster gets out and meets like some people that live in a small village, and he's able to like learn from them. The old man of the village gives the monster books to read, and that enlightens him. He's able to like come up with full sentences, and he helps the village out with their farm and everything. It's a sweet, it's very sweet, those scenes. I love those scenes in this movie. It's really good. Definitely begin to show affection towards the monster, and you have empathy for him in this, because he really wasn't ever a problem. He never wanted to hurt people. Victor's the guy that's hurting people throughout his life with how he's acting. He's a guy that definitely would need therapy or mental health, because he's just annoying and just horrible to people. And what I also like about this movie is that just how it's shot. It's just like it's a beautiful looking movie. Definitely has a lot of bright colors to it, with like reds, whites, um, green, blue. Del Toro loves to use color in his movies, especially with the costuming of the characters. I mean, this is the age of like barons, baronesses, kings, queens, and so they all have like that like look. Everything is very classic looking, very gothic in the costuming, and very gothic in the structures, the buildings, and the towers, and again, this story is also, you could also look at it, it's very deep with Christianity, of the of the values and themes of forgiveness and redemption. And again, when it comes to Christianity, especially in that time, there was a lot of Gothism, Gothic architecture, Gothic aesthetics mixed in with Christian, buildings like churches, abbeys, and everything, and monasteries. And you see that, and statues. You have like a statue, I believe, of like guardian angels in this movie. And there's a statue of the guardian angel that Victor prays to, and I don't want to spoil that, because there's some really cool nightmarish things about that. Again, the scenes that Del Toro is able to weave throughout this movie are just something like that are incredible. Like everything is turned up to 11. You definitely see, and again, I love those themes. I love the Gothic romance period, and you have that reflected in the buildings, in the religious settings, in churches and stuff. And Del Toro, Guillermo, has said that he was a former Catholic, and you definitely see throughout most of his work, you see him putting all that stuff into his movies, whether it's Hellboy, or The Shape of Water, or Pan's Labyrinth. There is a lot of Catholic religious stuff that he borrows from and puts into his movies to create something that's classic, that has gravitas, that has heft to the proceedings. And yeah, I just love it all. I love what he does with his movies, his writing, his directing. Everything is just perfected in this movie. And to me, it shows a lot of respect towards Mary Shelley's original vision for this story. And I don't know, I feel like if she were alive today, she would love this movie. She would be like, she would appreciate that someone finally got it right. And the creature, the monster, was never my favorite monster in fiction. He always looked goofy looking with the bolts and stuff. He doesn't have the bolts. They got rid of the bolts in this movie. He doesn't have that in his neck. They actually have something else where he has like this kind of metal spine that was placed in his body, like on his back, like the spinal cord. And when the lightning hits, the tower and goes down and hits him, you see that going through his body, and resuscitating him and giving the heart a beat. And so yeah, just like the design of everything, I love the design of that whole thing. And Del Toro's always done that. Every one of his movies is handcrafted with care. And yeah, all I can say is that you guys got to watch Frankenstein. If it's playing in the theater near you, go see it, but it's available on Netflix, and everyone has Netflix. So check out Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. It's one of the best movies of this year, and I don't know if I would say it's a masterpiece, but it's damn near close to being a masterpiece of a great adaptation of a great novel. All right, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you. All right, bye.